This is Rogers TV, Durham Region. The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk Politics. I'm Deborah Hutchison in the Rogers TV studio. Our guest this week, joining us via Zoom, is Jennifer O'Connell, MP for Pickering-Uxbridge. Welcome back to the show, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
There's so much to talk about, as always. Let's start with small business. There's a lot of attention on small business, the plight of small business. Now that we're into phase 2, there are so many businesses that are not going to survive, full stop. Let's go over some of the support that the federal government is providing for those small businesses to hopefully help them through the crisis. Let's start with the Canadian Emergency Rent Relief Program, because it differs whether you're
Absolutely.
in a lockdown area or like Durham currently in the red zone or orange zone, or doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think rent support, well, first of all, let's just start out by what you mentioned. And of course, we're really concerned about small businesses and the impacts that they're feeling as a result of the COVID pandemic and a lot of the adjustments that have had to be made for the protection of the public and the health measures. So yeah, one of the biggest things we heard throughout this was rent supports for small businesses. And we had a program previously which was in partnership with the provinces and territories, because technically rent is actually the jurisdiction of provinces because they control the Landlord Tenancy Act. Mm-hmm. So originally we had designed it with that in mind, but the problem was it had to go through landlords, and a number of landlords just didn't sign up, which was really disappointing, because if the business isn't doing well, the landlord isn't going to collect rent. And we were quite disappointed in that. There were other, issues, and we decided to just move forward with our own program. This would allow us a little bit more flexibility in terms of not having to renegotiate every time we needed to make a change. So we created the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy. This time it is going directly to tenants or small business owners, and it's up to 65% of rent coverage. And as you mentioned, if there are businesses within a lockdown order, or different provinces call it different things, but basically where businesses are ordered to close, mm-hmm. then we'll give an additional 25% during that time frame. So it could be up to 90% of rent coverage through the federal government. And it actually went live on Monday, and now it's done through CRA, which is, again, a lot easier because most businesses already have a business account and can apply, and they should be receiving the payments as early as December 4th, I believe. We're hoping it will go out, and it will be a lot quicker and a lot easier for businesses who are struggling.
Totally makes sense. How long is this benefit in effect for?
Well, so far we've released for the first month, which is a little bit retroactive to September 27th. Then we will open up the next month, which is on November 30th. And I don't believe there have been set, it's certainly until the end of the year. And then we'll continue to extend as needed, but we'll have to readjust, obviously, depending where things are. And again, this is the beauty of us controlling the program now completely. We can make those adjustments. And because it's done through CRA, we can make those adjustments quite quickly. But we are moving ahead monthly so that as situations change, mm-hmm. as we saw just recently in Durham and certainly in Toronto in lockdown, for example, this situation is fluid based on the numbers, and we want to make sure that it can adapt as the health crisis is changing in different regions.
You've also extended the wage subsidy until June 2021. Um, Great news as well for businesses who are struggling. How does that wage subsidy work?
Yeah, so the wage subsidy has been, I think, a really big success. Basically, it covers up to 75% of an employee's wages. There is an upset limit, but this also covers employment premiums and things like that that the business would have to pay. So it's an incentive to keep employees on the payroll, and we encourage the employers to pay the remaining percentage. However, even if they are unable to, we will still provide this because we'd like to see employees stay on the payroll. If businesses had to shut down, we still want employees to be there so that they can ramp up quite quickly, or the ability to help mitigate some of the financial changes that these businesses are facing. And we think this has been a support that has been well received. And I think throughout our supports, I think we've helped something like 800,000 businesses through our supports, and we will adjust as we see what's needed.
Now, of course, as tax time is approaching, and it is approaching as we get to this time of year, people have to start thinking about it. Um, for those that were not lucky enough to be kept on via a wage subsidy or to keep their jobs and had to rely on CERB, um, there's also concern now come tax time that if they were on CERB, that they're going to end up having to pay a lot of money back. There's been a lot of talk about that. What do you say to them?
Well, from the beginning, we did say that CERB would be a taxable benefit. However, it really depends on the individuals have changed as a result as well. But I think your question is a little bit towards those who maybe received CERB and shouldn't. I think what our approach has been, we are not trying to be we're not trying to make this harder on people, and we're going to work with people if they've received it and shouldn't have, but if they are in each Canadian who needs that help. Certainly if somebody knowingly applied for CERB knowing that they weren't entitled to it, we are absolutely going to take the measures to get that money returned. But for now, we felt that we had to roll the program out quickly, and we wanted to make sure Canadians who needed support, it was there for them.
And no one's going to argue that these programs were needed at a very, very difficult time, but there is some concern over the long term on the effect of Canada's finance. COVID-19 has done a number on our finances. How are we ever going to pay for all of the support that was necessary in the long run?
Yeah, I think we were faced really with a choice, and I think we've seen other jurisdictions that made a different choice. I realize that there has been a lot of supports and a lot of money spent, and absolutely post-pandemic, we are going to have to look very carefully at where, our priorities, we had thought our priorities would be, and if they need to be adjusted, given the pandemic and the cost to that. But I will say that I think the cost of not acting and not providing these supports would have been far greater. The first is that, and the rent subsidy is a perfect example. We wanted to make sure that there were supports available so that if health measures had to be taken, that they could be taken. So as painful as it is for shutdown orders, for the health reasons, they need to be in place. And so we wanted the economic supports so that those health related shutdowns, really weren't a question, and there wasn't a question between health and the economy. I look to the US, for example, where we're seeing today is Thanksgiving for them, and we have seen massive lineups at food banks, and they had provided only one economic support throughout this entire pandemic. And I know our economies are different and we have different politics, but at the end of the day, we had to support people. And I think that it really isn't a question at this point. You have to ensure that people can put food on their tables and that a roof over their head. And this pandemic has blown a lot of those social issues wide open. And we made a choice, and I think it's the right one, because I think the pain would have been far worse had we not.
We've only got about a minute before we go to break, but I want to ask you, what are you most proud of when you look at your government's response to this nightmare?
I mean, I think it's kind of twofold. I think the health response is absolutely critical, listening to scientists and experts. And in fairness, I think there was a lot of unknowns at the beginning, and we're criticized for not doing this or that. But I think that the agility that we created was important. And in politics, sometimes you never want to change course because you're afraid of what that looks like. But I'm really proud that we were able to adjust where needed. And that's on the economic side too. When we heard from businesses based on what they needed, or from families, we adjusted. And I think that agility in politics is sometimes rare, and in governments. And I'm really proud we built that into the system, because I think that's what's made all of these supports possible to get out to Canadians as quickly as possible.
And I can tell you, I don't think I've ever seen the federal governments and the provincial governments work so well together.
Yeah, and it's because we have one job, and that's to keep Canadians safe. And we've come together to make sure that that is what we're focused on.
Okay. On that, I'm going to stop you there. We are going for a quick break now. Stay with us. More to come after this.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
There are soldiers in my family. I first joined the Legion to honor their service. Now I volunteer there to be of service myself. I know my membership helps Canadian veterans get the support they need. I've personally seen it help veterans get through some pretty dark times. Many have come out stronger than ever. For a lot of them, the Legion feels like home. It's nice to be part of that.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV Quiz. Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV Quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTVquiz.
I'm Deborah Hutchison, host of Talk Politics. Each week we speak one-on-one with your elected officials at all levels of government about the issues that affect us all. Keep informed. That's Talk Politics each week right here on Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm Constable Gerald Rice, Durham Regional Police Service. Tune into Rogers Cable 10 to watch me on Seniors Talk with DRPS, where we'll talk about all kinds of amazing information and community programs for you, our seniors in Durham Region.
Let's talk about vaccines. That is top on everybody's mind. And there's a lot of concern out there that we won't be getting access to vaccines until after a lot of other countries. We've got our hands in a lot of pies here. Talk to me about how the government has ensured that we will eventually have access to vaccines first.
Right, absolutely. And I'm happy to talk about this because I actually think this is going to be critical for Canadians. And there's a lot of different information out there. And so anything I can do to help clarify some of it, I really actually appreciate that. So I think Canada has, or not that I think, I know Canada has one of the best vaccine portfolios of any country around the world. We have secured over 400 million doses of 7 different vaccines. Early on, we recognized that vaccines were going to be critical. And so we negotiated those contracts with actually options to purchase additional within each of those contracts. Now, some of the media that we're hearing lately are things like certain countries might have access to some of those vaccines as early as a few weeks from now in December. Part of the issue, well, and that's based on a really big assumption that these vaccines are actually approved by the local regulating authorities. But let's be honest, the results are looking quite positive for a number of them. And some of the leaders, just so viewers know, like Moderna, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca, we have contracts with all of those. Those are part of the 7. But the thing is that where Canada, we knew from the beginning, lacked is we don't have domestic production ability. And so we always knew that that was going to be an issue. And it's part of the reason why we built such a large portfolio to try and make up for that. In addition to that, we actually made investments to construct a new facility for pharmaceutical production because we realized where we were lacking as a country and what was limiting kind of our production ability. We used to have these capabilities, but over the years they actually left Canada, which is a big concern.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you why.
So that's kind of.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you why. You said they left Canada, but you know, why don't we have one now? I would think after SARS that would have been a priority for any government to get that ability to make your own vaccines here. Why did they leave? And
Absolutely. Well, I think we'll have to go back and look, but I can tell you the Prime Minister made this point yesterday in question period. In 2007, we lost AstraZeneca and Bristol Myers. They closed their Canadian manufacturing. In 2010, we lost Johnson & Johnson. Merrick closed their facilities. In 2011, Teva closed. And in 2012, AstraZeneca, GSK closed and announced layoffs. So there was a pattern there. There was a specific government in power that entire time. It was not ours. It was the Conservative government. And so, I think it's a legitimate question to say, you know, where was Canada's priorities in terms of ensuring this? And after SARS, you're absolutely right. So we've reinvested. Unfortunately, the facility that we've been investing in, it's still under construction, but at the end of the day, you know, the importance of having domestic production ability is crucial. And it's, you know, something that no matter what, we have to stay on top of. And that's really where we're limited. But because we've negotiated such a diverse portfolio, I think that we're going to see that Canadians will have access to vaccines once they're approved in short order. And we feel pretty confident in the work we've done. In addition to that, just to be clear, we've procured, for example, enough syringes, dry ice, because the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine requires shipping through in very cold temperatures. We procured freezers, swabs. So we've been procuring pretty much everything you need so that when we have access and when they land on domestic soil, we will be able to roll everything out.
I would think the distribution, once it is approved by Health Canada, just the logistics of getting it where it needs to go is a mammoth task, a nightmare almost.
Yeah, and I think, well, for one, rest assured, it is something we've been working on leading up to this, because we've known vaccine, again, is going to be critical in moving forward and getting out of this nightmare. So we've been thinking about that. We've been working with provinces and territories because, again, we have a system where our healthcare is really, delivered through provinces and territories. So we need their partnership. But we wanted to make sure we were procuring everything we needed to and working with provinces and territories. The other thing is we're going to need a very clear distribution plan, because these vaccines so far that we've seen are delicate. We don't want them sitting in some storage unit somewhere. We want them rolled out as quickly as possible to Canadians. And so we're going to have a very open and transparent process, but that work is ongoing to ensure that as soon as we get approvals of these vaccines and as soon as they land on our soil, that there will be a very clear approach to how Canadians can get them.
There's always been concern about the approval process. Once these vaccines have been proven effective and they go through all their trials, they still have to be approved by Health Canada, correct? And there's often talk about certain drugs getting approval much faster in the US or over in Europe or in Britain than in Canada, that the Canadian system often takes more time to approve. Is that a bit of a concern?
I mean, I think as a Canadian, I am pretty proud of Health Canada. Yes, sometimes it can be frustrating because we want approvals quickly. But as somebody who, would inject this or have family members take it, for me, I want the most thorough, robust assurance that it is safe. I do think we have to mention that a lot of the portfolio of vaccines, there are differences, right? There are 3 types of vaccines that are being worked on. One is protein-based, one is viral vector, and one is mRNA. And the mRNA are the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. And that's why they require really cold temperatures and things like that. So these differences, what matters too is not only that they're safe and effective, but they might be better suited for some members of the population over others, right? There might be some vaccines that are better suited for the elderly or better suited for people with, other health conditions, or better suited for children. And so this is the type of work that Health Canada does. It's not just this is safe and you can take it. They also look at, what conditions should be in place and who should take what. And so it might be frustrating that Health Canada sometimes takes a little longer, but for me, I like the reassurance that these approvals are being done by scientists and experts and not politicians. I think we can't let Health Canada and the approval of drugs in this country become political, because I think that can be dangerous.
Okay, we've only got about 4 minutes left, so I want to move on to some other things that we wanted to talk about. The creation, on a totally different note, the creation of the Universal Broadband Fund. Let's talk about that and why that's so important to Canada.
Yes, well, it's important to Canada, but it's also like to us in Durham region. We were talking about, I was having all kinds of internet issues yesterday. yesterday. But we had made a commitment to have every Canadian connected. But obviously, given the pandemic, we've seen this need increase. So we've actually accelerated this plan. So we have our new program wants to connect 98% of all households by 2026, and then the remaining 100% of all Canadians by 2030. And so what we've done is we've invested $1.75 billion. And so what we've essentially done really quickly is we've created a few different streams of funding, some to access really quickly to get people connected as soon as possible. And then we've made it really flexible. That's what we heard from municipalities. That's what we heard from providers. And so we've done some of these things based on that. The other key piece is we've committed $600 million to secure low Earth orbit satellite capacity. I think this is going to be a big game changer, especially for rural and remote communities where the cost of, laying wires and the infrastructure is so cost prohibitive. And this will be the first time this technology is used here in Canada. And I think it will really help us speed up this connection process.
Okay, we've only got about a minute left. I also want to mention a recent infrastructure announcement providing Durham Region with millions for transit funding.
Yes, very happy. 45 million for Durham Region Transit. I was happy, I think it was like 2015, 2016, we committed something like 98 million for Durham Region Transit. And that was the largest investment in Durham's history from a level of government. And to come back with another 45 million, this is long overdue. Durham has, really needed these sorts of investments from the federal government. So that will cover 11 conventional buses, new hybrid electric vehicles, and 13 conventional buses, 16 minibuses. So it's really to help also electrify our fleet, but this is going to help be able to deliver more transit to the region. So I was pretty proud of that investment here at home.
And of course, kudos to the Oshawa GM plant repurposing. They continue to make masks. That contract lasts how long?
I'm not sure on the exact date, to be honest. I know that we've had some great industry partners, but I'm also happy, speaking of GM, just in regards to rehiring 1,700 workers over 3 years. I know that's not pandemic related, but I think overall that transition to help supply PPE was incredibly important. But then to know there's a future for these workers as well with GM is going to be critical for our local economy.
I have to stop you
Sorry,
there.
I don't have the date exactly on.
That's okay. Jennifer O'Connell, thanks so much for being our guest. Thanks to you for watching. Until next time, I'm Deborah Hutchison.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
My mother said we had to leave home. The communists were going to take my father away. If my parents were afraid, they didn't show us. But we would never forget our escape from Vietnam. We were lost.
What was your job in Vietnam?
University professor.
We had no home.
Do you have any family in Canada?
No, sir.
Nobody wanted us.
Welcome to Canada.